Hi folks, this is Jay. Hope you're okay today. It's good to see you. Hope everybody's okay. I just want to share with you today that I set 2 traps for the atheist, and fortunately the atheist fell into the traps, and I wanted to see, just test the strength of the atheist intellectual integrity, just to see how much the atheists really want to engage in deep reflection. So I set 2 traps. The first trap was I made a video complaining that the atheist had changed my video. I said that the atheist had actually stopped my video from playing on YouTube concerning Hovin going to prison. Immediately the atheist took a copy of that video and then put it on their website, on their YouTube channel, and said, "Look at Jay, isn't he an idiot thinking about these conspiracy theories?" The other trap that I set with the atheist, which absolutely made me roar with laughter, is I said I was going to write a novel, and it's called Against the World, and it had a character, Dr. Mayer, and I wrote 2 chapters of a novel, and I can honestly say when I finished those chapters I was absolutely roaring with my I was falling over, roaring with laughter. It was so funny. really, honestly, I was absolutely roaring with laughter. But I pretended when I was reading the chapters, I was pretending that I was going to be a novelist with this particular book, and then I was sharing 2 of my chapters, and consequently the atheist thought I was serious, and so they spent more attention reading those chapters because they thought I was some kind of crazy dude writing some kind of cliche novel, where it was making them highly amused and falling over with laughter. That what they didn't realize is they were really showing that that's all they were interested in. They were only interested in entertainment, trying to laugh at somebody who they thought was an idiot, who was supposedly writing a novel, but it was a cliche novel. Yet isn't it funny this creationist was doing that? At the same time, I published a paper. It was a lecture, and I gave the lecture and I wrote the paper. The same atheist gave my 2 chapters of my novel far more attention, infinitely more attention, than actually the arguments that I gave for the resurrection of Christ in the lecture, and that became the paper. So what we see amongst the atheists really is ultimately they're only after entertainment. Really, they don't want proper engagement. They just don't want to engage in proper discussion and debate. What they're doing is straw manning Christian arguments. That's all they're doing. Straw manning presuppositionalism. They won't actually engage with anyone who actually presents evidence, and if they do present evidence, they just hide behind semantics. Look at Arna, how he's hiding behind the semantic of what evidence is, and Hogtie Chan. They're not actually dealing with anything specific. They've not actually dealt with any specific arguments that I gave in my lecture and paper. They're just dancing around the subject. But they're only doing it at a very low ebb. You see, I've made many videos, and if I do make a mistake, you can bet on your bottom dollar the atheists jump on it. And they will make videos and they will post my videos that they feel might critique myself even. But on the League of Reason, they've not posted hardly any of my videos. They've not really waded into me. They haven't waded into me because they know it's an argument that they can't win and they don't want to attract attention to it. They've had to be dragged, literally dragged, as a movement to actually properly link to the paper. When Aaron put my paper up on his channel on League of Reason, he did not link to the paper, and he left out the bibliography or the references at the end that I wanted to encourage people to study, both against and for me. They left all that out. He left all that out. Recently, DPR Jones on the Magic Sandwich Show has insisted that the Magic Sandwich Show will properly link and put all the content of the paper within that link. Big change, but they've had to do that because they've been severely criticised, and they've only done it because they've been criticised. And all we've had from DPR Jones and all we got from Aaron Ra is semantics. He's not actually said anything in detail about the paper at all. And that's because he doesn't know anything about historiography, and it's out of his league. DPR Jones, to give him his due, has had a go, but again, he's had an advantage in that he was prepped by a friend of his, who was a friend of mine, an atheist, who I trusted and privately told that I am arguing from history, that I'm going to deal with DPR Jones and the New Atheist from a historical argument. And I told this atheist not to tell DPR Jones. Now DPR Jones, when he's been arguing against me, has been trying to argue on the grounds of history. Very interesting, because the Magic Sandwich Show has always been about scientism. Thunderfoot, Aaron Ra, Concordance, Hogtie Champ always talk about science and the power of science and the effectiveness of science and the epistemology of science. It's all about science, and DPR Jones is one of the high priests of this scientism on the Magic Sandwich Show. Yeah, isn't it not interesting? His arguments, or puerile arguments at that, have been about history. I wonder where he got that from. Could it be he got it from the atheist friend who I befriended and told him about my strategy, and the same friend became at that same time a friend of DPR Jones? Could it not be that that person told DPR Jones about my strategy? And that is why DPR Jones has not concentrated on science but on history. And is it not telling that I make an argument against science and the issue of miracles, and yet these so-called scientists have not been able to debunk it or even attack that? Very interesting. But the atheists fell into two traps, okay, and at the end of the day they're only interested in entertainment. They are not interested in proper discussion and academic debate. I am doing a Google Hangout in a few days' time. I've given the dates. One is going to be on systematic theology. That's an in-house discussion. As atheists, you're not welcome to that. It'll be Christians if Christians come, and we'll be discussing about systematic theology. That's on a Friday night. And then I'll be giving a lecture on systematic theology. Then we'll be having, on Saturday night, we'll be having a discussion on Bart Ehrman. As atheists, you're welcome to come to that. And I'll be giving a lecture on Bart Ehrman. And then we're having a spiritual depression on a Sunday, and that's an in-house discussion. You're not welcome to come to that as atheists. But you're welcome to come to the Friday night and to discuss Bart Ehrman. But what I increasingly see from the atheist community is that what you're really interested in is in entertainment. You're not interested in critical analysis. Your critical analysis of my paper has been very puerile. Not one of you yet has actually dealt with any of the main arguments. You're just dancing around, and it's sad to see. I'm not impressed, and I don't feel intimidated by such a group of people on the internet who were just not willing to deal with the issues. For example, not one of the atheists has ever mentioned that in my paper I argue about the nature of women and how women were not accepted in testimony to the same degree as men in law courts in antiquity, and that yet the Christian Church based the founding of the faith on the testimony of women. And I mentioned Mary Magdalene specifically. That was a major argument that I made. D.P.R. Jones and none of the atheists have ever mentioned it or commentated about on it or given a reply or response. That's just an example how they avoid debate, how they strawman. Second thing is, D.P.R. Jones, hogtie champ, and this atheist friend who stabbed me in the back, they have not given us any hypotheses or model that we can look at. You see, it's easy to knock your opponent, but if you haven't got a hypothesis to put in its place, then you're just strawmanning at the end of the day. You need to put a hypothesis about what are the facts about Jesus and how you explain a non-resurrection. All you've been able to do at the moment is to pick holes, little nicky-picky holes, with what I've said. That is poor scholarship, it's poor critical thinking, and it lacks any intellectual integrity. But what I find shocking is I can write a novel that I know is funny and pretend to be serious, and you're more entertained by that than you are into real study of history and the life of Christ, who has affected history more than anybody else. That shows how weak you are as a movement. So I leave it with you. You've fallen into the trap, and you fall into it time and time again. And I can say conspiracy theories, and you can jump on that and say, look at this guy, he's anti-intellectual, not realizing that I've set a trap for you because I was just seeing how you would respond. You ran at that more eagerly, more enthusiastically, of trying to so-called expose me for believing in a conspiracy theory, rather than actually deal with the history, rather than actually deal with real material that you can sink your teeth into and think about. And all the attacks that you've been done, to be honest, I am not impressed with. I don't rate in any shape or form, and I think that as a movement you're intellectually bankrupt. My lecture was only a small part of the many things that I've got to say. I've got so many things to say, so many lectures. I'll be lecturing on Bart Ehrman in a few days' time on the Google Hangout that I've dated. There's 3 Google Hangouts coming on the 15th, 16th, 17th of November. I'll be lecturing on Bart Ehrman. I've got the scholarship, okay? I've got the notes, I've got the evidence, I've got the knowledge, and I'm going to give it out. And I'm just beginning to let loose some of my own ideas and thoughts. But what I'm seeing is a dishonest movement that doesn't really want to engage intellectually. The Magic Sandwich Show spent nearly 2 hours talking about me, and they never mentioned about the women and about the testimony of woman in the ancient world. They never got onto it. That was a major argument that I made from my 3 facts, the 3 facts that D.P.R. Jones mentioned, but he only mentioned because I criticised him for not actually mentioning the thesis of the paper in his first round. There we are. You were trapped and you fell into the trap, atheist.